For more on this, we can speak with France 24's Cristopher Guly in Ottawa. Now, Christopher, obviously that ad that was run by the Ontario Premier Doug Ford did not go over well with Donald Trump. It made him so mad he's terminated talks. What's the reaction been in Canada?
Well, we're still waiting to hear from Prime Minister Mark Carney. He's getting ready to fly to Malaysia for the ASEAN summit, which Mr. Trump will be at in Malaysia. Uh, Doug Ford, the man responsible for that ad, just posted on X that he just dug his heels in and said, "Look, this is Reagan. Reagan said this, and remember Ronald Reagan." 1987, he and Brian Mulroney, the Prime Minister of Canada at the time, sat down and forged a free trade agreement. So Ronald Reagan was a very big free trade proponent. I think what we're going to see is Doug Ford is the bad cop. Mark Carney's going to have to be good cop again and try to mollify Donald Trump. There was some talk next week APEC summit in South Korea that the two leaders would meet to hammer out some sort of deal on steel and aluminum. I don't know whether that's going to happen, but again, remember, Mr. Trump just a couple of days ago was aware of the ad, and he actually said, it's kind of cool that countries are picking up on the vibe that Doug Ford was sending with the ad. So I think the president responded to the Reagan Foundation, and I think otherwise he probably wouldn't have said anything.
Now, you mentioned there Doug Ford. He also has a bit of a history of sort of saying lots of off-the-cuff remarks. He's kind of a colorful personality. He's certainly, in the past, had some strong words about Donald Trump and what Donald Trump's been doing. But as you mentioned there, he's now taken to social media, just put out a post that's called Canada and the U.S. Friends, Neighbors, and Allies. So is he doing damage control here?
No, he has said that all along. Shortly after President Trump launched the tariffs against Canada, Doug Ford made it very clear that on the one hand, Canada and the U.S. are strong allies, but on the other hand, Canada should not back down on punitive measures against these tariffs in the form of retaliatory tariffs. And he has pushed Mark Carney since Carney became prime minister to keep at it. And when Carney walked back some of those tariffs in September, Ford wasn't that pleased. He has been the sole Canadian leader who has remained firm against these tariffs throughout the 10 months of Donald Trump's second presidency.
Now, Christopher, what is the Canadian government's plan to continue negotiations? I mean, we know Trump just said they're halted, but I mean, I'm sure they're not halted for good. So, how is the Canadian government working with Washington to try to get things back on track?
Well, I think we're going to hear more today about that. Over the last several weeks, many Canadian officials have been shuttling between Ottawa and Washington, in particular, Dominique LeBlanc, the Minister of Canada-U.S. Trade, has been meeting with officials in the Trump administration to sort of hammer out some sort of deal, if not just steel and aluminum, to address the whole tariff issue. What happens now after Trump's outburst last night is anyone's guess. Just 2 days ago, it's interesting to note that Mark Carney held his first national televised address at the University of Ottawa, spoke to students and said, look, in the next decade, we're going to have half of our trade outside the U.S. So he telegraphed where Canada is going to position itself on the trade front. And next week, you're going to see the Canadian Prime Minister meet with Asian leaders, maybe a meeting with Xi of China, to hammer out some sort of separate deals. Canada has several free trade agreements, I think 16 or 17 now, with Indonesia just added about a month ago. So it's not just traditionally Canada's been trading with the US, but there are all these other trade accords in place that Canada can and will have to now pursue.
Christopher, thank you so much for keeping us updated. That's France 24's Cristopher Guly in Ottawa.